Welcome to this episode of Beyond Distribution with GTDC. Our guest today is Ali Baghdadi, SVP and CEO for the Middle East, Turkey, and Africa for Ingram Micro. Supporting tech innovation in an area with multiple cultures and languages and a host of geographic barriers is challenging for even the largest vendors. Ali talks about the key reasons why those companies look to distributors to build and support strong channel efforts in those communities. What are the largest technology opportunities in this region? How can vendors gain the most traction with their investments? Which advanced technologies are in high demand in different parts of the region? Listen to this episode of Beyond Distribution with GTDC for those answers and more.
Welcome, everybody, to our next edition of Beyond Distribution. I am thrilled today to have with me Ali Baghdadi, who is the Senior Vice President with Ingram Micro and the CEO of the Middle East, Turkey, and Africa region. So, Ali, welcome.
Thank you very much, Frank. Delighted to be with you here.
Yeah, we're great to have you. Our team has talked about you for years, and so this is a great opportunity for me to meet you. So it's good having you.
Thank you. Well, that doesn't reflect my age, but never mind.
Well, I kind of enjoy people that join that are, probably similar in age. Let's put it that way. You and I have a lot of experience.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So speaking of that, one of the things we like to start with is just talk a little bit about, your professional journey, how you got here, how you ended up doing what you're doing, et cetera. That would be interesting to our listeners.
Well, absolutely. So you see, from a very young age, I was designing and building model airplanes, rockets. I was always interested in mathematics. I mean, my teachers used to tell me that I was the best in class or whatever. So I then progressed from school to study electronics at Cairo University. But then programming was something new, and I decided to study programming as well. So whilst I was studying, I actually studied Fortran programming at the Institute of Statistics. And somehow I came across this company called IBM, and they thought, well, maybe he's worth something. So let's send him to his summer school. So I did internships with IBM every summer in the UK. And then I joined Imperial College. And at Imperial College in London, I did my master's degree in computer science. And I was offered two jobs, actually. One was by an old professor called, he was like the only professor who was into AI at the time. He was teaching a language called Prolog. I got fascinated by Prolog and I studied it. And he used me to be like his assistant during the classes. And he offered me a job after that, but I didn't think that AI had any future. So I took another job at Imperial College as a research assistant, designing networking for industrial machinery for the mineralogy and petrology departments. And the college ran out of funds to fund this research. So they asked me to kind of promote my designs to large industrial firms, which I did. And my partner who joined me in this design journey was a small company called Apple Computers. So I was designing everything, my own microprocessor computers on top of Apple. And we managed to sell it to these large industrial firms. So from there, somehow, both the college and other partners of the college, Imperial College, decided to help me set up a startup, which I called Appropriate Technology. And that was my first company I set up in the UK. And it was designing product and writing software for another startup called Microsoft, and which was promoted by IBM. And that was that. AppTech, or Appropriate Technology, was born. So there we go. That was back in 1980, 44 years ago.
Wow, that's pretty amazing. So IBM, Apple, Microsoft in the early days.
Yes.
Oh, and by the way, AI back in early
1975, Prolog.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's pretty incredible. That's a great background. So you got to Ingram through the sale of Abtech, as I understand it, right? And then since then, I guess that was about 10, 12 years ago. And then since then, you've been running this part of the business for Ingram. Is that, do I have that timing right?
That's correct. Yeah. So actually, so Aptec grew significantly over the years, even before Ingram, and it grew in the UK, it grew in Germany, it grew in the Middle East, and it was always with value-added products on top of existing vendors. So it became like a true value-add distributor. And I was actually some of my companies, i.e. the UK and Germany, were acquired by another NASDAQ listed company called CHS Electronics. Then I brought in an investor called DIFC Investments, and with the DIFC Investments money, I managed to acquire Tech Data Middle East and also Avnet Middle East. And so we continued to grow. And then came Ingram Micro. I managed to acquire my companies, at least the Middle East part, back from CHS Electronics. But I always thought it was good to be part of a bigger institution.
Yeah.
And that's when I came across somebody by the name of Martha Ingram. And Martha Ingram was a co-founder of Ingram Micro, and we got on really, really well. And she suggested to her board that Ingram should acquire this guy and his company. And we actually reached an agreement, and we almost signed, and we were flying to meet in London to sign, and it was September 11th. So the aircrafts were
2001.
Yep.
Yeah.
So our aircrafts went back again.
Yeah.
And there was no sale. And then they tried again in 2007, I believe. And for some reason, the board didn't agree for some reason. And then this chap called Ali Baghdadi came to become a CEO. I had given up on Ingram by that time, but I was in the process of selling Aptec to another firm. And then somehow Ali Baghdadi introduced me to Ali Baghdadi. We met in the US somewhere, San Diego, I think. And within 30 minutes, we had a deal. And that was 2012.
That's great.
So I became part of Ingram Micro.
Yeah. So obviously, since then, your operations have, evolved as distribution has evolved, right? Which is, and, I've been in the industry for 40 plus years also, and I've watched, from the beginning of the PC, because I was at IBM in the PC business back then. So I watched, sort of distributors initially, what I used to say were a bank and a warehouse, right? And we've watched that evolve to so much more, right? And I can only imagine that you've lived that, and it had to be interesting, certainly in general, but also for your part of the world.
100%. I mean, actually, I mentioned earlier my first interactions with IBM. And actually, what I did with IBM was I took Microsoft operating system and I turned it into 11 different languages. And one of those languages were Arabic. And IBM decided to take me. That was just after the launch of IBM personal computers. So they took me on a tour of the Middle East to show off this Arabic stuff on the IBM PC. I even had to engrave keyboards in the different languages and have a hardware piece that shows and displays Arabic on the screen. And so it was quite a job. And that was my first, beyond my internships with IBM, that was my first commercial interaction with IBM. And they got me an office within IBM Middle East, actually in Jeddah, and it was SBM, and in Dubai and so forth. So that was early days. But if we look at what happened in the Middle East, over the years, things have developed considerably over those years. And I think we've contributed in a large way to influencing the ecosystem of how things are sold in the Middle East. In the early days, you don't get channel partners, you don't get system integrators. You get agents, an agent for IBM, an agent for Compaq, an agent for whoever.
Yep.
And that was that. And they sold to end users. So we came in with this new concept of, hey, let's train some interested parties who want to be system integrators, and we'll bring them the product and they put it together and we help them and then they sell it on, and that's how we scale. And definitely the business scale. And that's why I thought, okay, let's focus on MIA or META before we focus on, rather than focus on Europe, which is much more advanced. And that's how we developed the business for AppTech, and therefore later on became part of Ingram.
Yeah. So you said you used agents. So back or that was what was in place at the time, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
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 Correct.
Yeah. That you know, how else, Ali, does the business in, you know, Middle East and Africa sort of differ from perhaps the rest of Europe and also, you know, North America and Asia? What other significant differences are there?
Yeah. So for a start, countries vary considerably within the Middle East, right? If we talk about META, you know, it's not really one entity as such.
Yep.
You have countries like the Gulf countries, which are driven by investments and diversification with low populations. You have high growth rates in those countries of artificial intelligence, for example, and advanced solutions, mainly driven by large enterprise organizations, either owned by government or oil and gas or. Then you get other types of countries, like countries with large populations, which had a long history of education, for example, like Egypt or Levant or North Africa or Jordan. And these tend to address their solutions more to SMB-driven type entities because they already had these establishments and they have a more diverse market segments. And so the solutions tend to vary from each. And actually, when we talk to different vendors, we look at the solutions that are most suited for any of those. So Middle East, when you say how does it vary or compare to Europe, like I said, you know, in certain countries like the Gulf region, they are really keen to invest in the most and the latest advanced technology. So they actually may have bypassed some traditional technologies sometimes and went for the latest.
Wow.
So we're helping a lot of organizations in this particular region to establish AI GPU-based data centers, for example, or automation in a big way, because again, smaller populations, more automation required. So AI becomes a big player here, right? Whilst in some other countries, we're talking about technologies which may be more suited to serve areas which are remote, that don't have proper internet connections, for example. So I just did a deal, for example, with Elon Musk's SpaceX satellite system that provides internet everywhere in remote areas. So Starlink now is part of what we're going to be doing and hopefully showing off to our countries in the next month or so.
Wow. Yeah, that's interesting. So, you know, you talk about, you know, advanced technologies, if you will. So clearly the whole digital transformation has, you know, continued to evolve. And in fact, you know, I would argue the pandemic actually accelerated that evolution for sure, right? And so Ingram is I think in a very good position with your Xvantage platform and what you're doing, you know, because ultimately that's the future of I think distribution and where it's going. So couple of questions. How has you know, your region adapted those trends, and also what challenges do you see today with the vendors and the solution providers to sort of, you know, integrate it and leverage it, you know, going forward?
Sure, absolutely. So again, looking at the region as something that you need to be close to the region and provide solutions that the region really needs, right? I mentioned earlier that it's really important to have the language, for example. That's why we were brought into the region, having developed Arabic and made the interfaces proper and so forth. So that was important. Now, historically, you know, we've been leading in this space in terms of bringing the latest technology and services to the region. And like you say, Xvantage is something that Ingram Micro invested in developing in a massive way. And Xvantage itself has numerous algorithms, AI algorithms that do various functions to automate and to make life easy for the interaction with the vendor, whom we aggregate, and we have many vendors, to interact with the customer and to interact and make life easy for our own associates. So we automate and make it easier for the customer to do so. Now, having said that, of course, there are some challenges maybe in the region itself. I mean, some countries restrict the use of governmental organizations to SaaS. Having said that, you find a lot of government organizations that use Gmail, but at the end, but they still restrict the use or storage of their own data outside the country.
Yeah.
But if it comes to challenges generally that vendors maybe or solution providers may find in the Middle East and need to adapt to it, I think the biggest challenge is skill shortages, right? With the fast changing ecosystem of what we call digital transformation or new areas of technology emerging, there is a massive shortage of skill. It varies from country to country. And then, of course, some countries have economic challenges. For us, for example, to provide big, and we do have financial services to many of the countries, but we also use credit insurance to be able to give credit to our clients. And some of the credit insurance companies across do not really award credit insurance for some of the countries in Middle East, Africa. Which means that there has to be some payment delays and so forth. So you need a strong distributor who can bridge the gap between finance and satisfying the vendor requirements when it comes to payment on time and so forth, right?
Yeah.
Otherwise, if it's a small distributor who doesn't have the sufficient working capital, they can suffer massively, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I can see, from my standpoint, as I watch it evolve, it seems to me that, and you mentioned certainly the business process piece is important, right? Because that's a productivity enhancement for everybody involved, right?
Yeah.
The marketplaces also make sense because everybody has a marketplace these days, right?
Yes.
Whether it's a vendor, whether it's whether it's a distributor, or whether it's a hyperscaler, right? Everybody's got a marketplace.
100%.
But I also think the piece that's really going to be most compelling over time will be the data piece, because the ability to capture and utilize data in a way that helps transact and drive business will become very significant from my standpoint. And I would think that, certainly in your part of the world, that's got to be, extraordinarily important.
Absolutely. I think, to be honest, in any part of the world. But this whole AI evolution and revolution really has kind of turned me back into the kid I used to be when I was designing rockets. And I have been, because I've recognized the importance of AI, as I mentioned, from a very early time. I actually have established an AI business unit and department within Ingram Micro almost 8 years ago.
Really?
So we've been watching the progress and the development of AI as such. But of course, new AI algorithms and generative AI has now provides or will provide significant advantages, and it will enable more automation, more learning, more inference, and predicting outcomes using the data lakes or the existing data of any organization. Yesterday, I was in my old university, Imperial College, and they were predicting that nearly half of the jobs in the world are going to transform.
Wow.
And that's why they're preparing for what they call extended education to re-enable people who are whose jobs are being automated, right? And so that's what also we are serving here, within Ingram Micro. We're looking at how this predictive AI that's going to use machine learning to identify patterns of past events and large amounts of data to make predictions about the future events and to make recommendations of the right solutions, the right products. That's exactly what we're doing with our own, within Ingram Micro, and to help our own people. So like you said, we've launched and continue to launch Xvantage platform. We're now rolling it out across the META region. I think we have it already ready in Turkey. We're having it in the Gulf and in Saudi, and it will serve all of North Africa as well. And then we'll see how far we can go in terms of extended as well. So yeah, I mean, fascinating. We're definitely looking to automate our interactions with customers, vendors, and our own associates, like I said. Yeah.
Yeah, and then what happens in a world of open distribution, which is the world we live in today, is that creates stickiness with your customers, because it'll make them really hard for them to go someplace else once they get locked into, and locked in is not in a bad way, locked into the platform. That's kind of how I look at it.
Yeah, absolutely. So the platform is going to be like a home place, right? You go there for advice, you go there for interaction, you go to learn as well. And that's an important part, actually. You know, if we're talking about how can partners keep pace, for example, with AI and technology, that you know, we are looking as to how we're going to also enable the partner, because many of the associates of our partners, or even of our vendors, to be honest, don't have the know-how of what is this new AI, you know. I can tell you more about, you know, what kind of education we think will be suited for these people, if you like.
Yeah, I would, because let me tell you what, it is, I just got out of a conference, a 2-day conference in Denver, with a company that works, Ovation Ventures, who works with a lot of startups. And what they do is they bring together end users, distributors, emerging tech companies, you know, and everybody in the ecosystem. And I'll tell you, the whole 2 days was discussing AI and the implications of AI and where we sit. So yeah, I mean, in your case, and I had no idea before we started this discussion, I mean, you're a pioneer. You've been you knew the term AI in 1975 when nobody knew what the heck that stood for, probably.
By the way, we didn't call it AI then.
Yeah. Yeah. Machine learning, was it? Was that what you?
It was. It has another name, but
yeah,
it's so far back. But yeah,
yeah. So one of the thought processes that I have relative to where we are, sort of in the evolution, is what we're seeing in a lot of cases is there's a lot of in the IT space, a lot of seemingly jobs, you know, sort of being lost, right? People are laying people off. You know, there's been a number of announcements recently. And my sense is what we're seeing is sort of this scenario where some of the productivity enhancements are starting to evolve, but not that much. Yeah. Secondly, companies know they have to make significantly more investments. So they're looking to, you know, make sure they have the ability to do that. But what we haven't seen on the other side yet is anything close to what's going to happen relative to the real value. And then secondly, to your point, all the new skills that are going to be required, because I think we're going to need a bunch of skills, you know, to really leverage this thing going forward.
Yeah, so let me take this in stages. So first, about skills, right? Skilling our own people and skilling partners is very different to the skills that a vendor needs to have in order to develop product, right? So at different levels, we're looking at what is out there already that is an AI engine of sort that's doing a function of sort. So it's important for us to educate our own associates and also our partners on what, give them training, for example, on vendor tools that are using AI. IBM Watson X, Microsoft Copilot, NVIDIA CUDA, Cloudera, Databricks. So we're invested in becoming training centers for all those vendors so that we can at least tell people these are the current product lines that are out there. And then we've developed, I mean, actually about 5 years ago, we developed a coursework within Ingram called the AI Academy. And but that was based on the learnings at that time, you know, machine learning and various other type of products that were existing at the time, algorithms. But this has now developed and became much more advanced. And so we're right now hopefully going to be launching our own Ingram Micro courses and enhancing the AI Academy. And this is going to be for our own salespeople and for partner sales. This would give them the grounding of what's an AI agent, what's Gen AI really, can it do, what's the machine learning, what's reinforcement learning, what is this, and what can they serve. At least they would have that basic layer of knowledge they can talk to their customers about. So when somebody asks, they know where to go and what solutions may be out there. And there are, of course, online courses and certifications offered by universities and by some vendors. I mentioned earlier, like IBM, Databricks. And yesterday I was in a big meeting with Imperial College, who are also preparing higher level AI courses for specific industries, for marketing, for this, what that can rely on data. So, but then to become a fully fledged data scientist, that's a much longer and much bigger exercise. And to be honest, I know some of the world's leading data scientists who are consulting for Ingram and for others, or even working for Ingram. But that's another story. That's to develop something like Xvantage or something else, right?
Yeah.
So that's just on the education, so we were talking also about the challenges maybe AI vendors face to get these solutions out to market. Like the number of startups and new ideas is growing exponentially. I think I was looking at some data, nearly 6,900 startups in the last 24 months. In the US alone, there's like $47 billion of funding in small startups. These haven't even started to generate revenue. So we're seeing a massive number. I don't think, the large and established mid-sized AI vendors also do not have the expertise of the channel, which is something I'm noticing. So we're really trying to explain to those mid-sized successful developers that, hey, do it through us, through distribution, because we can take the B2B, we can take you to the right type of market. We have the advantage, but we also know the market, and we have the presence worldwide. We can reach 90% of the world's population. So come to us and we will take you there. There are other challenges, to be honest, that will be faced by both vendors and distributors. So AI solutions are being increasingly subjected to regulatory approvals.
Yeah.
I was just talking to a CISO this morning about the EU AI Act, which was produced in August of this year, or the Department of Justice regulations, which is also confining what data and what AI can do with data and so forth. So it's important to understand what's what. Other challenges may include GPU-based servers, for example. We call them inference-based servers. And those inference-based servers now, because of certain restrictions on which countries they may go to. So some of the countries that we serve in META have export regulations and export license approvals required from the United States, which might take months for a server or a data center to be exported to a particular country. So these are challenges that people will face, but we are doing our best to help everybody.
Yeah, I got to tell you, I am frankly blown away with one, your background in the space, and two, just all the things that are happening that are critical, that are absolutely required, no debate, because everybody is trying to sort through and figure this out, and it's constant conversation, constant discussion. So look, we're getting kind of close to the end, but from my sense, it would appear to me that you're pretty energized by what's going on. I get that, and I know I get energized, and even after spending as long as I've been in the industry, it's fun to see sort of the evolution that we're seeing. So some closing thoughts on that, and I'd be interested to hear sort of your view on the future and where it's going and what you think.
Absolutely. So of course AI today is the big is the big news, but there are other things which we must never lose sight of, right? So high-speed interconnectivity. What are we going to do with 5G? Yep. Satellite-driven internet and connectivity, Starlink, SpaceX. Here in the Middle East, we're assembling satellites, believe it or not. Quantum computing, that's another story. Post-quantum cryptography, how to protect our data. Is quantum faster or GPU-based systems faster? It depends on the application. It varies. One can be faster than the other. The re-engineering of data centers. Data centers are growing to serve all this Gen AI and AI revolution, but data centers consume a lot of power. So a lot of new designs are coming out for cooling systems, underwater, all sorts. And that's another area that we're looking at. ESG, sustainability, sustainable products, practices, and solutions to save the world. Very soon, not very soon, even now, some buyers, some large organizations will have decisions on who to buy from and which vendor to buy from and which products to buy based on their ESG rating. How can you do ESG rating with AI? Yes, we can. So all of these things are emerging for future. Now, what is our role today? I'll tell you what we hope to become and what we are actually today. So as Ingram Micro, I would say our role as a VAD is to deliver cutting-edge solutions. Our aim is to enable and support the IT channel. And our goal is to create an ever-evolving hub of innovation and advanced solutions in a rapidly changing digital landscape. Simple.
Very well said. Let me end with one thing. It seems to me that Ingram Micro Middle East is in very good hands. So I really appreciate you spending the time with us today. It was extraordinarily insightful, and it was great to hear your background and how relevant it is now. So nice having you.
Thank you very much, Frank.